Alright guys, so we've been covering a lot of IEMs lately, but today's that we're checking out, which is the EPZ 550 or the Purple Phoenix, this one definitely falls more into the premium category. It does come in retailing at about $550, but I have actually seen it go for around $500 as well. So I'll put a link in the description so you can kind of see whatever price it is at the moment. But what makes this a premium product, in my opinion, is not necessarily the price. It really is like the overall presentation, the product itself, the design, kind of the theme that they've stuck with. And, you know, it's just one of those I think really stands out for several different reasons, which we'll talk about. So the first thing that I do want to talk about is the theme. It's called the Purple Phoenix because the theme of these is straight up purple. If you're not a fan of purple, you are not going to be interested in these at all. But I'm not necessarily a huge fan of purple, but I love the design of these. There's a lot of details that's gone into the IEM itself, which is actually a unibody metal design, but it has an engraved design over the whole IEM itself. And then the plate on the outside kind of gives it like a gold and a white look, and putting that on top of the purple just again gives this something that definitely is going to stand out. Now, following the purple theme, they also include a purple case. It is a hard case to be able to house the IEMs. They've also included two different style of ear tips. There's no purple here, but you get a clear, which this is the one that has more of a sticky vibe to it, one that doesn't move around as much. And then you have just the straight silicone ear tips as well. So definitely make sure to try out both of these to see which one kind of works for you the best. And then the cable that they've included is a copper silver plated cable. It is using the 2-pin connection to connect to the IEMs. And then the connection that goes into whatever device you're using is only a 4.4 millimeter balance plug-in. Now, this is honestly one of the best ways to listen to your IEM, but the most standard jack is the 3.5 millimeter jack, which is not included here. There's no adapter for this. There's no 1/4-inch adapter. This is straight up just a 4.4 millimeter balance plug-in. So do keep that in mind depending on what device you plan on using these with. Now, the drivers on these, and when I read about them, this is the first thing that kind of stood out. This is using 5 balanced armature drivers in each IEM. And when you see just balanced armature drivers, the first thing that you think of is, are these going to have bass? Because balanced armature drivers, in my experience, is usually mainly for mids and treble. I don't usually see them handling the low end, but what they've decided to use here is 2 Sunyon 38A. Now, these are the drivers that are handling the low end. They're also using 2 Sunyon 26As, which are handling the mid range, and then they've went with a Knowles balanced armature driver to handle the highs. And it's also using a 3-way crossover system so that the lows, the mids, and the highs can be handled and taken care of separately. There's nothing that is causing these to cross over. And then the IEMs itself also has like a tiny vent on the outside to allow airflow, and this is to give you deeper bass. And it's supposed to keep it from having that congested or muddy sound, but we'll talk about that in just a second once we get to the sound. Now, if you're wondering if these need an amp, I'm gonna go ahead and say no, just for the volume, because the impedance level on these is only 20 ohms with a sensitivity level of up to 105 decibels. So it's pretty easy to drive these and get good volume out of, but you definitely are gonna want an amp to be able to push those separate drivers and to be able to really get the most out of the lows, the mids, and the highs. And with saying that, let's just go ahead and jump into the sound, because honestly, this is the most surprising thing about these, because again, I saw nothing but balanced armature drivers. I thought I was not going to get any low end, and the EPZ 550s is one of the first pair of IEMs to give me the bass that was close to my favorite Eco OH10s. That was like the IEM that I went to when it came to bass, and these have a similar bass response. It's very deep. There's a lot of space in it, so again, it's not like overpowering. It's not coming in and just rolling over everything else, but it doesn't feel like it's holding back the low end at all. At least throughout my testing, which I used my FIO K11. Again, that's been my go-to amp for my desktop. I've also used several different Moondrop amps and DACs plugging straight into my phone, and the overall experience is pretty much the same. This is a very dynamically tuned IEM, but there's still, pretty much the main focus here is going to be on the mid-range, the treble. The vocal clarity when it comes to male or female vocals is extremely good. Definitely a few steps in front of everything else. Treble's nice and bright, it's very clean, and at times, depending on, how loud you're going to listen to them, it can hit to that point where it can seem quite bright. But I think that kind of balances out very well when you have a low end like this, which in my opinion, I don't feel like is holding back. But the good thing, again, the mixture of all of this, the bass, even though it is as powerful as it is, it's still pretty tight. It's very fast. It had no issues being able to keep up with the double bass of the drums when it comes to metal. Switches over very well depending on whatever genre you're listening to. So if you're listening to pop or hip hop, where usually everything is a little bit more bass focused, it handles all of that extremely well. The clarity in the mids and the treble also makes this a very good pair to listen to orchestrated music, easy listening, anything that's just specifically vocal driven. It doesn't feel like it's, only good for one thing. And then when it comes to the soundstage and the sound imaging, I do want to point out this isn't like the most open sounding IEM that I've tested. This one has a little bit more of an intimate feel to it, and that could be because of the powerful bass. That always kind of makes me feel a little bit more isolated. When everything's a little bit more focused on mids and treble and nothing else, those are the ones that always seem to feel a little bit more open. So my overall opinion is this. The $550 is quite a bit, but I do love the sound that these have, and I do love the look and the design. That is already unique in itself. It's giving me the low end that I've been looking for since the Eco OH1s and the OH10s. So I'm definitely happy to have that in an IEM, but I'm also glad to have clarity that I didn't have in the Eco series. They just don't match with what the Purple Phoenix or the EPZ 550 has been giving me throughout my testing. It's a pair that I've loved to use across all the different genres that I like to listen to, movies, games. I didn't feel like there was any weak spot in these. So, and I definitely find that it compares to the more expensive IEMs that I've tested all the way up to like $1,000. But I'm always going to say this, if you're somebody that's going to kind of look around, even again, I've just checking out the critical reference IEMs that I've checked out recently, those are $350. There's always going to be cheaper options that can give you something a little bit similar. The reason I like these as much as I do is the low end that I've been getting without the sacrifice of the mids and the treble. But it's all going to come down to what it is you're looking for. But guys, if you are interested in checking these out, again, I will have it linked in the description. But that wraps up my video on the EPZ 550 or Purple Phoenix. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.